Okay, so another video in my series of doing the late night videos, and I want to say that the one thing that has stuck out at me in the last little while is the attention schema theory, and yeah, it was made by a Princeton. It was basically hypothesized by a Princeton neuroscientist called Michael Graziano, and it has been written about in the Atlantic by Mike Graziano, and if I'm saying his name right, and I just want to kind of say that it's a theory of consciousness. It's a theory of how we make things up, how we see the world, and how we attribute things to maybe even inanimate objects, like So essentially, don't take my word for it, but like I mean, essentially the way I understand the attention schema theory is that, and there was an example given in the Atlantic article about what happens when you do not perceive the world through your senses, but through your neurobiological kind of makeup. What would happen, say, if you turn your back to a dog, for instance, you still attribute certain characteristics of being to that dog, even though you're not seeing it. And according to the theory, this might be how we came up with God. And God would be actually a subset of consciousness. So consciousness rules supreme, the ultimate mystery that we have yet to figure out. According to Sam Harris, whom I agree with in terms of what is consciousness. Um, but God would be subservient to basically consciousness. We make these things up. We think about the patriarchal figure. You think about the dominant figure in your life, and you have these attributions to a God that doesn't exist, that is not in your plain sight. And it also explains why it was very crucial for us to come up with these imaginings, because we can't pay attention to everything all the time. So we end up constructing the world in our heads, not always based on irrationality, but based on what our senses tell us, etc., etc. So don't take my word for it. Go read the Atlantic article about attention schema theory and make up your own mind. But I want to say, when it comes to the issue of abortion, I think we attribute the same things. I think that once we realize, and there might be some kind of some sort of amalgamation that happens when we think about what it means to be pregnant and what it means to not be pregnant, to prevent the birth or the conception to begin with. Like, you would understand abortion as, once if you were pro-life, you would understand the conception of a human being to kind of this attention schema theory understanding of where the where the humanity and the makeup or the conception of that humanity comes in, because you haven't actually seen anything, you haven't actually experienced anything, but neither has a child, just as by the way. But you yourself put a certain attention schema theory application to this conceived child. And for a lot of women, they don't realize that they're pregnant until, like, well into the pregnancy. Well, not well in, but, like, at least at like, maybe, I don't know, what, 2 months. I can't remember, but, like, I mean, sometimes women get pregnant without even knowing it, and they kind of spend a whole bunch of time not knowing that they're pregnant. Blah 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 blah. Blah. But I think the attention schema theory kind of explains why we have this attachment to feti or fetuses, and the way we attribute human qualities to something that is not actually human. And I know that's a controversial thing to say, especially when it comes to Catholicism, and the way, maybe as an example of where Catholicism imbues a soul to an unborn child. Um, I feel maybe we the soul thing is also a manifestation of that attention schema theory. So that's all I want to say. I think we attribute, it also kind of explains indigenous understandings of the world, and maybe not specifically indigenous, but maybe animist understandings of the world. When we think that rocks have souls and trees have souls and like all this stuff. Like I mean, I tend to lie in bed late at night and watch shadows and think that those shadows are soulful monsters, looking at me late at night, you know what I mean? But they might not be. They might not be anything at all. And I think the light of day always proves that. Anyway, that's all I gotta say. Bye.